Today we're going to make a super simple GIF of space. So we're going to turn this moon around like so and make this on a continuous loop. As you can see, it's a 3-second animation, but it keeps looping around and around and around. So what we want to do first is just create a new composition. So however you want to do it, right mouse click is my always go-to, and we'll call this moon animation. Can make this 1080 by 1080. Make sure your lock aspect ratio is disconnected if it was uneven, like mine was. And let's just make it 3 seconds. Doesn't matter about your background color, we can always change that later. So here we go. So now let's create a new shape layer. So you can do this by clicking on Layer, New Shape Layer, or I always use my right mouse click to just create a new shape layer. So here we have the ellipse tool selected. So if you just want a perfect symmetrical moon, you can just do a ellipse like so. Otherwise, if you want it a little bit more realistic and rustic, you can use your pen tool to draw the moon. So make sure your stroke isn't on for this and just choose whatever color you like for your moon. So maybe I'll go with a more realistic color and I will draw the moon. So maybe it isn't this uneven in real life, but it certainly isn't a perfect circle either. And you know, you can always go and change whatever strokes you've done using this little black arrow tool. So if I was to click here, wouldn't be good. We don't want to do that. Just want to make sure that this black arrow shows up, and then you know that you can edit that path. Cool. So there's my moon. I'm just going to center this. So I always like to center my shapes just in case you want to rotate them and just move them around the scene. It's a lot easier to have your anchor point in the center. So by clicking on Y on your keyboard, it'll pull up this little guy, and then we can just move that to the center or wherever you prefer. So just want to make sure that's selected when you're moving it around. And you can also pull up your proportional grid if you want to make sure it's a little bit more aligned. So here we go. And that is fine. So here's the moon. We want to apply a gradient to it to make it a little bit more realistic. So I sometimes just type in this little help for gradient ramp. I'm just a sucker for spotlight search and help just to get to the point. But your effects and presets over here also does the same thing. So we can type in gradient ramp here. So it's under generate. And you can pull this on top of your moon, or you can pull it on top of the shape layer, whatever you prefer. And then it should pop up in your effects controls over here to the left. If you can't see your effect controls in the left, if you click on window, make sure this is ticked just here. So now we can grab that color that I had before, and I'll grab it again, but I'll make it a little bit darker. Now with my gradient ramp, these little circles at the top and bottom is my gradient control. So you can manually move it around like this, and you can also change it to radial, or you can pick these tools and just drop it where you'd like the angle to be. So I definitely prefer just using my selection tool to just drag it around where I prefer to have it. So there you go, makes it a little bit more realistic. So now what we want to do is create the craters that are in the moon that's going to be looping around, which will create that illusion that it's actually spinning. So again, let's do a new shape layer. And you can create with circles or you can draw them out, but just for this exercise I'm going to do it with circles because it'll be a little bit quicker. So I'll make these a bit darker and I'll just start drawing random circles. And you see for this, I've done it all under the same shape layer because it doesn't really matter because we're going to be spinning it all at once. So once you've done a random, say, anywhere between 3 to 5 to 7 to 10 craters in your one shape layer, we want to duplicate this across. So when you're moving it, once you've duplicated it, make sure you've got your selection tool and you've got V as a shortcut on your keyboard as well. And we just want to move that across to, say, there. That's fine. And then again, I'm going to move it across so it's about equal space between the other one. And then we want a fourth one. So I'm going to pull it to about there. So once we've got these 4 shape layers, we actually want to pre-compose them all. So let's right mouse click, so you can select all of those just by clicking shift click as you select them all. Leave out your bottom layer, which is your moon. And if it really helps you, you can always rename your layers just so it's like a safeguard. So let's pre-compose and we can call this craters. Now that we've got our craters, double click into that pre-composition, and as you can see, it's kind of jumped to this new navigation level, which is craters, and it's coming from our moon animation. So you can see this is cropped off here. So we just want to go composition, composition settings, and I just want to keep dragging this width of the composition out until it passes the end of our craters. So that's fine, as long as they're all in the scene. Now we can go back to our moon animation from here, or we can go back from here. Doesn't really matter. So we want to add in the position for the craters. So let's drop down P in our transform options, or you can click the drop down and let's put in a stopwatch at 0 frames. Now when we get to 3 seconds, we want to move it to the exact same position. So if we want to get in a bit of a faster motion, we'll have to start it from here. Now we'll move across to 3 seconds and we want it to have the same appearance. So we want our craters to be in the same positions when we meet the end. So from memory, that's kind of what I'm feeling is where it was located. So let's test it out. See, I think that's pretty good. I think that's a pretty smooth loop. So After Effects is a lot of trial and error. As you'll notice during the course, it's all about just playing around and seeing what looks best once in motion. So now that we've got our craters from start to finish, we want to duplicate our moon layer. And the reason being is that we want to mask our craters within it, but we don't want to remove our background. So Command C, Command V, we've got our second moon and we want to bring that on top of the craters. Now what we want to do is get our track matte and make it an alpha matte. If you don't have your track matte visible, just click this toggle switches modes and it should make it visible. So now you can see this has gone hidden, which is great. It happens automatically. And now when we play it, our craters are sitting within the moon. So this is a super simple GIF and you can create multiple planets, you can put stars in the background, you can do planets looping around it, maybe a little alien jumping on top of it. You can do so much, and the beauty of pre-compositions as well is you can easily apply another effect to it. So if we wanted to change the color of this, we can just type in fill and you can generate a color fill. So just drag this fill on top of our craters. See how they've turned red? So you can turn this to whatever color you like. And there you go. Now we've got green craters.